Welcome to the Bailey Banter. Today we are doing episode number 77. My name is Josie Shields, and we have Chrysii with us today.
Yes.
Yeah. We are going to talk about July. Yes, July's winner for our contest. Our winner is, drumroll, Sherry Bynum. I love announcing her because she's actually like super close to me. So yeah, it's fun. She lives like 40 minutes away from me, max, I want to say, on a bad traffic day.
Wow. She's really supportive too. I love her. She's always like making the nicest comments to people, and she's super active too, and just adds so much to her group. So I'm really happy she's one.
Yeah, she really does. She's great. Yeah, I think I see her comment, I want to say on every post that comes across, my screen at least.
Yeah.
So that's like impressive. She must really love us.
Yes.
Sherry, go ahead and reach out to Natalie for your prize. 5 contributors for the month, the people that are always showing up and keeping us showing up everywhere else, I guess is a good way to put it. Our number 5 is going to be Kim Allman.
Number 4 is Anna Einoff.
Number 3 is Leanne Fry.
Number 2 is Sherry Banyan.
Yay! And number 1 is Crystal Rose Guerrero Martinez. Congratulations, you guys. Thank you for always responding and talking to us, engaging. We love hearing from you guys. It is absolutely awesome.
Yes, thank you for all your engagement, and you just help make the group better.
Yes, making good choices. We are talking about the Bailey story that she did this week. Let me see what the actual proper name of it was. It was Cannibal Cop. Correct?
Yeah, that was his nickname.
Yes, and his name was Gilberto.
Yeah.
Gilberto.
And I forgot to write down his last name. I wrote him down as Gil.
Yeah, because that's what she called him, and I
Easier
think
to
that's what
pronounce. Gilberto. I would just struggle through the whole episode, and which I know is very Bailey-like, in saying his name.
Yeah, and for me, forever ago, like in middle school, I had dated somebody named Gilberto, so I did a quick, please no, thank goodness, no, nothing like this person. Thank heavens.
Yeah.
That would have been a big old like, guys, I think I have to retire from true crime forever because now it's just hit too close to home. I'm done. Yeah,
it is weird when you have those connections to a story and you're like, oh yeah, that's really hard. Like there was they arrested her because she was killing babies in the NICU, and I had a really hard time listening to that one because I know my son was only in NICU for 5 days, but there was a case where one of those kiddos was only supposed to be in it for a couple of days, and she got him, and it was just I had a hard time with that one.
Yeah, there's a few of these stories that involve for some reason they pop up whenever I have kids, but these stories are the ones about the babies, and it's not necessarily NICU, but those make me especially angry. I will give you that, because those are super vulnerable littles. Like, come on.
I know, and they're so vulnerable, and especially with anybody supposed to be there to care for them and take care of them, and they portray that trust, and it's just awful.
And not just that, the Hippocratic oath that they take. Yeah. That is anyway. But it's usually the ones with babies that get to me that I'm just like, oh, hard, uncomfy.
Well, at least this one today has nothing to do with that.
Thank heaven.
At least with notes I took, I thought it was weird though. Well, maybe not weird, but most of the time too, on this one he was kind of different because he didn't have anything like extreme or traumatic really happy in his childhood. It sounded like his parents were kind of an unhappy marriage, but not like extremely unhappy, just your average. They weren't doing well together and divorced when he was 5. And I know she said it came from a lot of the book that he wrote himself too. So that's where a lot of her notes came from. And to me, that doesn't seem like a big enough event to like change anyone. And he said nothing else really happened major in his childhood. And he was generally happy, and he got to go to theme parks a lot. And it's weird. He had a way more normal childhood than me.
Yeah. I look at that and I think it's Suspish. That one is a big old Suspish for me.
It's like a big red flag that he's acting like, oh yeah, my child was perfectly normal and nothing weird happened at all.
And yet you have these fantasies of, harming people, this, that, the other thing. We get into it further, but like, how do you come from a, less than toxic, really, family dynamic to this toxic of a thought process? I don't know. Normal or non-toxic or non-crazy childhood would produce somebody with such fantasies, and like the excuse that he uses at the end, that really just like keeps bugging me. I can't.
So the other thing that I find weird, it's not like he had urges to go online or had thoughts and fantasies that were normal. Then he found the internet and then progressed from there deeper and deeper down a rabbit hole. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, I wanted to look into porn, and I started normal porn, and then I saw some bondage, and then I found this, and then I went down this, and then it like escalated. He was already having those weird fantasies before he found the internet. So that was the other thing that I found a little weird. Like, where did you get that?
How did you come up with this idea?
I've always felt like this is, I was just born this way. It's a little odd.
Yeah, I have some very personal thoughts, very loud and personal thoughts on people who say those kinds of things about very off the wall feelings. But that's me. But I do feel like it's good that he didn't
act out on him.
Yeah, that he didn't act out on him. And I think that's the only part that I can say, well, maybe he's not lying about that background of his, because he didn't. We all have messed up thoughts, like Bailey said. We all have really messed up thoughts, and some of them make us cackle and kick our feet, and that's not always the case. But that being said, we don't act on them, and I'm assuming people who have had less than crazy childhoods probably have the same ones.
I know he did go to like a Catholic high school or something. I kind of misheard that. Okay.
And I think they said he did good there. He was like sociable, and he wasn't when he was a kid, but he began to be more sociable.
A lot of people have some very negative experiences in Catholic schools, and people who are in that religion, and we've heard some stories about that too. So maybe there's a missing piece in that. For some people, it can be very restrictive too, especially when it comes to sex stuff. It's very much like you doing anything to yourself is also a sin, and very black and white on a lot of that. So I don't think that would help anybody who's starting to have different fantasies. Probably not make you feel like those are normal. I know it's after that point it said, I wrote a note that he discovered the internet and found porn. Oh my goodness, I should probably say corn.
I think that maybe there's something to that, but again, like you said, he had come up with these thoughts before he had discovered porn. on the
Mhm.
internet.
And it sounded like he was already having some extreme fantasies, um, which to me, I think makes it in a way weirder because he was using people like in his classroom, like even said he struggled going to college because he would go into class and then he would look around at his other female classmates. And that's what he was drawing from. And I think
Yeah.
that's where I find a little ick factor in there, is the fact it was real people. Then
Yeah.
they're characters without even realizing it.
Yeah. And then the thought of just like wanting to take somebody against their will, like what is going on?
Yeah, I find that one a little weird. Just there's just a lot of things about it where it's pushing on that being accepting of your thing. And I think it's not, to me, it's including in people in real life. You know what I mean? This isn't fictional characters. These are people you know and you associate. That's what I find kind of odd too. That's
Yeah.
what kind of throws me off more about it. I've read some more extreme horror in my lifetime before. That's very graphic. So
Sometimes truth
read
is
some more
stranger than
short,
fiction.
or violent things, knowing, the two authors, of course, would never hurt anybody in their real life, but they're also fictional characters. They're not taking characters they met in their real life and then placing them in these horrific situations.
Exactly.
Because it's all pretend. And I think that's the key part that kind of gets to me, is that this wasn't imaginary. And the things that he does later on, that's what, to me, almost should be more wrong, is the fact it's real people. But anyways, we're kind of
and then
to the point where then he goes to college and decides to become a police officer.
yeah, he decides he's gonna I had to chuckle because I am changing my major to psychology. So yeah, she Bailey says he went to school and got a degree in psychology, and I'm like giggling about it. But yeah, no, he decided to get his degree in psychology, and then isn't that also where he met his wife? Was during college?
Yeah, it was like, oh yep, and then he decided he discovered Moki. I think I have another part to that name, that one porn site. And that's where he found the cannibal things, and that led him down this one where he ended up being on that other site. And that's where the majority of stuff they found, where he's messaging people and getting to know them. But the fact he included his wife, later on adding her picture and then going to very graphic detail, is just so unsettling. It's just, yeah. He acts like, oh my goodness, at first I had problems with her pregnancy and it was just because I was worried about money, but once we figured out, no, we can afford it, then he was more active, and you know what I mean, and just less stressed about it. But it interviewed with her, she was like, no, he was never into the pregnancy at all. Like he started distancing herself after that. So then he ended up going for sergeant, which he got, and then she had the baby, became a stay-at-home mom, and then they moved to a bigger place. So from the outside, it looked like this was a very good marriage and a very good life. Kind of made questions about his parents then, because he made it seem like, oh yeah, they fought and everything like that, but it wasn't that bad.
Right.
So it already shows
memories.
It could be. And the fact is that he can, in his viewpoint, see his reality as one way, and another person be like, no, that's not exactly what was happening. It's a major, maybe not necessarily red flag, but it's a flag. It's a flag of some color.
Yeah. He says mom and dad were good. And then, outside looking in, maybe mom and dad were having worse fights behind closed doors and he didn't know about it. And that was happening during his pregnancy, during the pregnancy that he was, conceived in, and all of that. And maybe that's what the traumatic event that caused him to think this way was.
Yeah.
Don't forget that he started using the database. He started
That is,
utilizing his power as sergeant to to upload pictures of people and come up with these sick sadistic stories and enjoy himself too. Like, what?
put their pictures out there, their names, their real names, and actual
Yes.
information about them. To me, he made them very vulnerable to other people, because we find out some other people on this site were actually doing crimes. So
Or
that,
trying to do crimes.
or trying to commit crimes. They were trying, I'm sorry, a lot of them had it. They were thinking about them, they wanted to do them, and
They
they
had
had,
plans and they like got caught by different sources. We can go over that when we get there because I'm sure you have that noted down.
it's not like you found a person in an ad in a magazine and cut out and took out that picture, and then you called them lollipop and then made up all these, fictional details about them. It's still weird, but it's less creepy and disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
He found a social network for people with dark fetishes. Oh, and his username.
Oh my God.
Was Girl
Meat Hunter. I guess.
I don't know. It's almost like he wanted to create a whole different persona online. And his persona was a cannibal who loves torturing and hurting and eating people.
Yeah.
A lot of other people put on persona online as just being successful or having money or nice things.
Yeah. No. No.
I'm a sadistic criminal. We question though, because they were saying they were taking people's pictures from Facebook too.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean for anyone who's ever had a picture on Facebook, has someone else done this to you? Because you can go online and pictures you post, you can save them to your phone.
Yeah.
And you can do whatever you want with them.
Oh no, it has happened. That's kind of what hackers are doing now. They're stealing pictures of people and then sending their friend requests, like creating profiles and sending friend requests and stuff. I mean,
yeah, I can see why. Some people are like, don't post your kids' pictures.
Yeah, I'm getting very wary about what I post anymore, just purely because some of the things I see, I'm surprised, like.
So afterwards, like saying how his marriage was kind of like on the downfall after he had the baby. But it seems like for how active he was on these sites, I could see why. Between having a job where he worked nights, a lot of his, I think a lot of his free time was based in this.
Like the more that we talk about this story, the more I'm starting to get like theories coming up in my mind. I actually know a guy that worked night shift for a majority of his career. And the way that this gentleman thought was really like warped. And I had heard that people who work long-term night shift and don't really get a lot of social interaction during the day outside of their family typically start having the way that they think alter and look a little bit different because they're in more of an echo chamber and they don't get that outside feedback. And maybe that kind of contributed to that addiction getting
he already
worse.
had issues.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need much else to make it more of a problem.
Yeah.
A high stressful job, and depending on whether or not he was completely alone at his job, because some people have factory night jobs, but they're working nearby other people. So
right. And
not totally alone.
Well, and the other
you have a few other people to socialize with.
Exactly. And the other part that I'm thinking of is he did take those psych tests, right? But you can lie on a psych test and not tell them what you need to know, especially if you have a psychology degree and know about these tests. This is in the curriculum for a psychology degree. So if you have this degree, then you're going to know about these tests, and how to take
Yeah.
them and what people are
These are
looking
common.
for.
I knew about these tests. I'd actually taken some psychology courses in college. I didn't major in anything. But I took one in high school, and I took like 2 in high school, and yeah, so it's easy. It's a very common one. The Minnesota one is probably one of the most well-known tests out there for things. I've taken it myself.
Yeah.
And knowing
Yeah.
that, I could have of course I was trying to be truthful, but if I really wanted to, I could have just lied my way through it, because I'm like, I know what you're asking for here. You're asking to see if this is an issue. So if I answer this would be my normal answer. Yep. And then I would know that I would just come across and just being like, oh yeah, you're fine.
Exactly.
You're just a normal, typical person.
Making it up. Maybe he was really he was having these fantasies and he was using it as an alibi to later on commit some sort of crime.
Yeah.
Maybe he was going to go after his wife, because he did end up paying somebody money.
Yeah. That. So it all kind of fell apart for him, because right now he's leading basically like a double life. So he has his kind of marriage, which isn't the greatest, but it's enough where I guess they're sticking together, right? But his wife is having a hard time connecting with them. And she said basically their as the ex-wife was not there. It was non-existent. And sometimes if they would try, he would get frustrated and run to the bathroom. But the weird part is that she would see him for hours and kind of avoid him afterwards. So they're having all of that. And so then his computer broke. So he borrows hers. And that's when things get discovered, because instead of just completely staying off these sites, he can't keep off of them. So he goes on there, and eventually that's when she discovers some of it. Not all of it. Just some.
Not all of it. Just the tip of the iceberg.
And then he's like, oh yeah, I have this kink. And she's being super supportive. And it's like, well, maybe we can add that to our own nut life. And or at least bedroom life, and was suggesting them get toys and get into this together to try to connect. And he wasn't into that.
No.
Which is really weird. And kind of selfish on his part in a way, because it's because those fantasies and everything is all about him and his needs and exactly what he wants.
Exactly.
And to include another person in there, then he would have had to think about somebody else and their needs and their wants.
Yep. I mean, he was a virgin until he was 25, according to him.
Yeah. And then, wasn't it where she put something on was it his device or her computer?
So it was she put spyware on her computer to watch
that he's still using.
But she had access to it from her phone.
Yeah. And she ended up leaving him and then moving in with her parents. And that's when she started seeing things about how to kidnap a human and human meat recipes. And just going into very graphic details. And it's not just about the horrible crimes he would have committed against her. It's people they knew in common too.
Yep.
Which is really just gross. I also just find it I don't think it's a crime, but I think it should be, where you're putting people's name and personal information on sites like this. Should be some type of crime.
It should be. You are putting people that are in vulnerable positions in an even more vulnerable position, because you don't know who is looking for their information. If somebody is looking for their information, you don't know if somebody else is fantasizing the same thing and is actually going to go commit this crime and actually hurt somebody. And
you gave him access to them.
Mm-hmm.
He finally contacted the police, which I do not. I totally understand that. I don't feel like she did anything wrong in that. They were separating, and they have a child involved, and the things that he's looking up is absolutely horrible. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And this sounds like things that would be set up, that we would be listening to this and then be like, and then he paid this guy, and then he went over and kidnapped and murdered her.
Yep.
At any moment waiting. And then this person was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't happen on this one, which I guess is kind of nice. But yeah, I get why she
But
was like, no.
we still got the at this point, yeah, it's a great place to talk about it. We still ended up getting that $5,000 got paid to kidnap his wife.
Yeah, yeah, and that was almost, I would just say, like swept under a rug at a certain point. And then with him also being a police officer and then using his resources at hand as a police officer for a lot of this too. Was like never really dealt with either.
They did initially. He did get tried for it, and he was convicted. But here's the thing: they overturned it. All of it, even the things that he was convicted of. Which I'm not exactly positive how this works, but
the big thing is, he did commit a crime. They were talking about like whether or not he would actually commit these crimes in the future, which is a very gray area. So I can see why that was kind of overturned. But he did misuse his power to do things and then got away with that. And I'm like, he didn't serve any jail time for that.
No. Well, I mean, he did serve the 21 months.
Overturned, and they make it like, oh yeah, you haven't served any time, you get credit.
He did serve time, though. He did serve, and ultimately that could be why they decided to acquit him of the other charges.
I remember they felt like 21 months would have been maybe the sentence he would have received if he had been charged with the one thing. Because that type of crime is a crime, but I don't think it's one that you're going to get 10 years in prison for.
No, not
it's something he should be banned from any type of like law enforcement. I think he should be restricted on. But I think right now, no, he's focusing on being a writer. So
yeah, I think they should ban him from any sort of public service, any sort of place where he has access to vulnerable persons, honestly.
Michael Van Nuys. And he also had some really, horrible fantasies his included children, but his wife was like, yeah, I totally know about everything. And even before we're married, he told me about these and I'm cool with it. So he was cleared because technically it's another thing of like, well, he hasn't committed a crime, even though you just have really gross, icky thoughts. You can't arrest a person over that. But he had two buddies then that they looked into. And
Michael Van Nuys, you were saying, he's the one.
That was buddies with him that they first started looking into, but he was cleared.
They had the same first name.
It was both Robert?
Yes.
Okay.
Both of them were named Robert. Both of them had special access to people. One was the police chief, and the other one was a librarian for high schoolers.
But one of them met up with a cop, and it was supposed to be with an underage, like 14-year-old. And he had a dental retractor in there. Didn't he have a hatchet? And then tape. He had like a little murder kit going on, and also things in there that would suggest him doing some very horrible things to a 14-year-old. And so they arrested him. So thank goodness they figured him out, and got him. Another one was arrested and met an underage girl and had an axe. So I think that was two different things.
Yeah, two of them had an underage thing, if I remember correctly. And one of them was the librarian because he had also been accused of touching 3 underage boys.
Yeah.
And one of them was an underage girl, and they met with an undercover police officer as well.
Which it was kind of the nice silver lining in all of this is that they stopped a few crimes from actually happening. And it's really weird that so many people do put themselves in jobs where they have access to minors and people that they can victimize. Yeah, there's some people who shouldn't be working with children too.
100%. I think that I'm really glad they do the screenings that they do, and I think some of the screenings should be a little bit more in depth, but that's besides the point. I think that police officers, they really need to be cautious with, and they really, even though they now currently do psych tests, polygraphs, I think they do 3 or 4 months in the state that I'm in of training to be a police officer, plus, some more extensive stuff. I still think there needs to be more. I think it needs to be harder.
And some states do less, because to become a police officer, depending on the state you live in, they have different requirements and, education.
But ultimately, at least they did give, a few people for the crimes.
Yeah.
And saved
so that was something. Yeah. A few people, there were some children, that were protected through this.
Yeah. Which is wonderful.
Which is, and I get that this one, technically no crime was committed, but in a way, I think people's safety was violated. I still think that there should be something about putting people's names and faces, and it would be like, I think he was putting personal information. Like, what if you're adding in where they work? You're putting in where you can find these people. So now he actually has written 2 books then. He's written one about his whole life experiences, which I guess you can read, but I would definitely say
he's spark notes on that.
Yeah, I don't know if he's the most trustworthy narrative about it, narrator. I would question everything. I'd be like, you sure?
I would wager to say that his second book is probably closer on to what he really thinks and feels.
So the second book is Gathering of Evil, about 2 young girls being stalked by this group of rich, wealthy people that all they want to do is kidnap them and torture them. Now, for the most part, it has 3.8 on Goodreads. I think if people who they didn't consider who the author is, gave it like 5 stars, like 4 or 5 stars. People who considered his history were giving it 1 to 2 stars. Cross our fingers that he used his imagination and came up with fictional people for his book. I guess if he wants to write weirdo books with
better
not
than him doing
people,
yep,
and then he gets to live out that side or those urges or whatever, get that kink out. I am, I guess, for it.
As long as nobody gets hurt in the process, fine.
Yeah. I am one of those people.
Let us know.
It's like you shouldn't read this. This is gross and it's awful. And I'll be like, I think I kind of want to read it more.
I know what I signed up for.
I would be the type to read this book just because of morbid curiosity. I'm just like that.
You're the person that is curiosity killed the cat, satisfaction.
Yeah. I'm definitely on that one. Although it sounds like this one gets pretty brutal, so it might be pushing even my boundaries.
Like I said, let us know if it's good. Great. If it's not, then tell us it's trash. That was an intense story. And speaking of headaches, it is giving me a headache. But yeah, have an excellent day. Take it easy, and
you too. Make good choices. Good choices.
Good choices, yes. And if you've got creepy fantasies, only write them down, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Fan fiction, like stuff.
Yeah.
Bye.